No More Heroes first released in Japan on December 6, 2007. Widely acclaimed for its unique gameplay loop, sense of style, quirky sense of humor, and memorable protagonist Travis Touchdown, it remains a cult classic to this very day. Today, I'll be tackling a very uncommon challenge run. What if you weren't allowed to use death blows outside of bosses, and the whole game you went without using the slot machine power-ups? To get into exactly what I mean by this, we're going to have to go over some basic gameplay first. No More Heroes was a hack and slash game released on the Nintendo Wii, with a lot of motion control involved in its combat. So, as Travis Touchdown, you fight with a beam katana, a sort of wannabe lightsaber. You have high stance attacks and low stance attacks. You activate those by pushing the A button while holding the remote vertically or horizontally. You can alternate between them in the middle of a combo to vary up your moves, and also to get in longer combos. Every time you attack, you will deplete battery on the right side of the screen. When you're out of battery, hold down the 1 button, shake the Wiimote, and Travis will make a sort of jerking off motion to recharge the battery. Normally, battery recharging is not super common, but especially this early on in the challenge when I was a little rusty at the game, you're gonna see me recharging a lot. So, we just got a health power up there. Your health is displayed in the upper left corner of the screen, and that tiger in the upper right actually does not factor into this challenge at all. He is gonna be asleep the whole game, because we're not using any of the slot reel power-ups. To get into what those mean. So every time you attack an enemy, obviously they're pushed back a little bit, and when you're locked onto them by holding down the Z button on the nunchuck, you can see how much health they have left. When they are about to be defeated like that, you will see an arrow pointing in a random direction. Normally, you will be prompted to swing the remote, the Wiimote, in that direction to execute a death blow. However, in the context of this challenge, we're not doing that, because every time you activate a death blow, you activate the slot machine at the bottom of the screen. Sometimes it won't give you anything, but sometimes you'll match 3 symbols and get a unique power-up for Travis, whether it be a Sith mode, where he is walking up slowly to enemies with a black and white filter, and you instantly kill them with a QuickTime event, or Travis literally goes Super Saiyan and gets instant death blows from all attacks on enemies. It's pretty nifty stuff, but unfortunately for this challenge, we will be avoiding that. Slot machine power-ups are notably only activated from these death blows. So every time that prompt comes up, I will just be straight up ignoring it. Also, apologies ahead of time for all the audio spikes. This game loves to get really loud when you kill multiple goons at once. So the screams stack on top of each other and get really loud. So apologies for that. I have lowered it in my editing software, and will do it more in future videos if it becomes unbearable, So, and I did say plural videos. Originally, I was going to make this all one video, but I've decided to separate them out by rank or level, because later levels tend to go on for a little longer, particularly doing this challenge, just because enemies take a little longer to beat. And bosses themselves are also difficult too. So slot reels. There are multiple ways of circumventing them. The way you're seeing me do it right now is the charge attacks. In either high or low stance, you can hold the A button and Travis will charge up and attack. Release it, and it will do a lot of damage on nearby enemies, usually killing them if they're this early in the game because they have lower health. But the caveat to this is that it uses up a lot of battery. You can let it off early to not do as much damage, but also not use as much battery, or you can commit to the whole thing. Low stance charge attacks and high stance charge attacks both have different properties. High stance attacks, I believe, let off after a set amount of time, regardless of if you're ready or not, while low stance attacks, you can charge as long as you want. At least until you're hit, which you will be interrupted a lot if you're not on the ball. You'll also occasionally see Travis punch or kick an enemy. That is known as a beat attack. Pushing the B button in either high or low stance. I believe in high stance it will punch, and low stance it will kick. The punch is a little quicker to get off, but these attacks do not do damage. They serve to temporarily stun an enemy and make them vulnerable, potentially, to a wrestling move, which you won't actually see much of those in the early game, but I'll get into that later. The point is, slot reels can be circumvented by charge attacks, down attacks when an enemy is knocked down on the ground and just incapacitated, not able to do anything. Get up to that enemy, lock on and push A to do a down attack. Travis basically executes them and skips the slot reel entirely. Kills from wrestling moves will also not trigger the slot reel. And there is also one final way to skip it, and that is known as a parry. It is something I'm currently working on still. I'm currently working on improving at it. You won't see it too much in these first couple of levels, but rest assured, it is a really good technique and vital for speedrunning as well. Particularly in the second game, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, those battery power-ups will automatically max out your battery, and they are vital in a run like this one. While locked on, you are blocking attacks. You are automatically in a guarding position if you're standing still. However, blocking attacks does drain your battery, so keep that in mind. Enemies can block too, as you just saw, and that's where beat attacks will especially come in handy. Because if you do the right beat attack at the right time against a blocking enemy or boss, you can stun them for a wrestling move and do major damage. Not every wrestling move will kill. Some wrestling moves will just make them ready for a down attack to be executed. That right there is a high charge attack into a clash. Clashes, when you win them, usually result in a death blow prompt. Not taking this death blow opportunity will sometimes result in cheap damage, so just keep that in mind. Try not to clash when there are too many enemies around. And this is the original Wii release, so the frame rate is not the most stable, but it is still impressive when it maintains a consistent 60 frames per second when not many enemies are on screen. Early on, I tried to restrict myself by not using wrestling moves, and this carries over to the bosses as well. It isn't until rank number 8, aka Shinobu, where I basically decided, I'm using enough wrestling moves at this point in the game against normal enemies, so why not use them against bosses too? And that leads to me getting a really clean run against Shinobu up until the very last hit. You'll see why in just a couple of videos or so. But yes, charge attacks are great for killing enemies quickly, and multiple enemies at the same time too. But they do leave you open, because if you are hit while charging one, you drop your charge. You don't use any battery, but you do take damage. And enemy damage values will go up as the game goes on. Because another facet of this challenge that I'm also adding in is I'm only using the starting weapon. It's called the Bloodberry, and I am going on default health, default combos, and default attack strength. Normally, in between rankings in the overworld, you can visit the gym of a man named Thunder Ryu. He was Travis Touchdown's mentor and a great fighter, apparently, from the stuff he teaches him. So you can go to his gym and pay him money you earn to lift weights, do sit-ups, and just do workouts that basically involve a lot of either button mashing or motion control with the Wiimote and nunchuck. Completing these little mini games will boost Travis's stats and allow him to keep up with the growing enemy stats throughout the game and growing boss stats, because late game bosses have a lot of HP, especially so in this challenge. See, with the lack of restriction on wrestling moves now, I would have probably just killed that guy there, but not this time, apparently. You'll want to use whatever's at your disposal, and that is also why, at least after rank number 9, I'm allowing death blows on bosses, because the slot reel is turned off during boss fights. And you can see the gun enemies here, both in and out of the context of this challenge. They're the most annoying enemies in the game. Probably next to the beam katana guys, but those guys at least don't spam their projectile attacks as often. Alright, so that is the end of the normal enemy encounters in this level. I have trimmed out the load times, and I will also be trimming out this thing you're about to see in future videos. Because this playthrough isn't really covering story, I am skipping all cutscenes, or at least most of them, except for like some mid-level ones later, just like short little vignettes. But stuff like this, these are the phone conversations with Sylvia Crystal, the woman Travis Touchdown is trying to get with throughout the game, and she's the one who sets him up on these ranking fights to become number 1. The number 1 ranked assassin in the world. That is the plot of No More Heroes. Travis wanting to become number 1 so he can get it on with Sylvia. It's pretty silly, but it's not to say there isn't some depth along the way too. Unfortunately, we cannot hear Sylvia's dialogue here because despite you seeing me switch the settings early in the video, by default, Sylvia comes through the Wii Remote speaker to sort of simulate a phone conversation. If you turn that feature off, her dialogue comes through the TV, but for some reason, I guess I just didn't do that correctly, and you just don't hear her. You at least get the subtitles, though. So what you'll see me doing here is the health power-up that was right there does not give you full health. It doesn't max out your health. It only gives you back a little bit. Fortunately, going into the save room here, aka the toilet, respawns the item. So I have sped up me getting the rest of my health back. And yeah, nobody needs to see Travis, taking a piss or whatever. But now it is boss fight time. And like I said, these are not part of the No More Slots challenge, but they are a challenge in and of themselves, not only because, they're well-constructed boss fights, but also, as I said before, I am tackling them with base Travis stats and the base weapon. As you progress through the game, Travis can get more beam katanas and upgrade their stats as well. Like upgrade their battery usage, their combos, their damage output, all that good stuff. I will just be sticking with the default Bloodberry stats, so you will not see me visit Dr. Naomi's lab one time. You gotta love Travis's little monologue here Little inner monologue while fighting death metal. That would be the life indeed. But not everything is what it seems. I usually don't lose those clashes, but the less battery you have left when you enter them, the more likely, or the harder it's going to be to win. No matter how much you move the Wiimote sometimes. There was also a wrestling mask prior to the boss fight that I could have picked up. This was still when I was restricting myself on those. So when death metal is stunned here, I try going in and pushing the B button for a wrestling move. It doesn't work because I didn't pick up the mask. Starting with Shinobu, I do pick them up, and boss fights will go by a little quicker. Yep, see, the B button prompt is not there.
Deeper than my instincts is taunting me.
It's taunting you indeed with his clones. They're not too bad though. The clones have less health than the main man himself. All right. So that is one clone. No, not down quite yet. He's got a teeny bit of health left. He's hitting his guard like a dope. Taking pot shots. Again, I was still, sort of rusty with the Wii version at this point. Something underestimate. Couldn't hear all of what he said there. He's acting very docile for whatever reason. Oh, I guess because, his clones are attacking me. Alright. Oh, yes. I should also explain that. When you're attacked, when you're blocking an attack, if you time your dodge right after with either the analog stick or the D-pad, Travis will activate what is known as a dark step. And time will slow down, and he'll be able to get some free hits in on the enemy. This works on enemies and bosses, I should mention. The analog stick dodge is easier to pull off, but doesn't last as long in the slowed down time. The D-pad dodge lasts a little longer, but is harder to pull off. Most of the time, I just go for the analog stick one. And it can be tough to time, so usually I just end up wiggling the analog stick left and right. It works on both this version and the Switch version, which I can go into a little more later. So these right here, not Sylvia, the little hearts you'll find after boss fights are mandatory health upgrades. So these are the only upgrades I'll be getting throughout the playthrough. I won't be collecting any Lovikov balls either in the overworld, but I can get into what those mean in the next video. But yeah, we have advanced to rank 10 officially, death metal is dead, and we are 1/10 of the way to finally being enough for Sylvia Crystal. I'll end the playthrough, not the playthrough, I'll end the part on a save animation because, it's unique. This whole series you save in bathrooms. Yeah. Also, during loading screens, you can tap the B button over and over to make that star go up over and over and eventually change color. It's honestly pretty addicting. But yeah, that is the end of the video. I will see you next time.